Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to another EVE Online video, and today's video is going to be a discussion video because I want to talk a little bit about the Abyssal Dead Space content and the Triglavian content that is planned for the expansion that should come on May 29th, called Into the Abyss. Now normally I would take the dev blog as background and go over all of that, give you guys my opinion. Unfortunately, it's Monday and there is still no dev blog on this new type of content, so we are going to do this in a travel video with my new transport ship. I actually bought this ship last weekend. It's an Occutor deep space transport with a nice fleet hangar of 60,000 pretty much cubic meters. Very handy for all of the stuff that's not worth too much that I have lying around across stations across New Eden. So I'm probably going to use this on a weekly basis because it's also really great for my compressed ores, for instance, for the loot that I get from exploration. So it's a really nice ship. I'm not going to share my current fit with you guys because that would be giving away the exact EHP that I have, but personally I am interested in any fits that you guys can give me on the Occutor. So if you have any that you use yourself, feel free to do a mail to me, Zuko. I would love to take a look at it, compare it to my own fits, and see if I can improve what I've got here. Maybe if I get a nice fit and it's a nice improvement, I'll show you guys what I've got going. One thing that you can know, of course, I do have a compact afterburner, which is like 7.5 second timer. So that's also normally my timer for, oops, and we should really go for Cheetah, right, like that. So that's normally my time to get into warp, which I think is actually quite okay. Today we don't have anything of great value. We've got some apparel, my BPCs of course, and down here I think we still have some skins, but that's really it. So if you have any fits for the Occutor, definitely feel free to mail that to me. I would love to take a look at that. Now, as we get started on our trek to Jita, let's start talking a little bit about the Triglavian Collective, the new faction that is coming in EVE Online, and especially, of course, the Abyssal Dead Space dungeons, you could call it, that CCP is going to bring here. So my very first opinion on this, it is a bit biased, but I am quite positive and looking forward to the idea of these solo dungeons in EVE Online. The main reason I'm biased is because it is absolutely tailored to my personal playstyle. I'm mostly a solo player and it's for cruisers. That's about as good as you get when you like to explore in high-sec for combat sites, which you do in cruisers, which you do mostly solo. So I do think that it is very specifically aimed, oh, and I should have used the afterburner, that this is very specifically aimed at those types of players, and CCP has said that as well. It is to provide engaging PvE content to solo players and make this quite accessible for alpha clones as well by keeping it to cruisers only. It's also a test bed for technology for CCP, so the future plans are definitely to expand on the Abyssal dungeons and to probably add group content, battleship content, really hardcore stuff. But it will of course depend on the success as well, which I must say I want to see first what it's all about before I really say that it's a great feature for EVE Online. But my very first impression is that it is positive and that I will definitely do my best to run these dungeons and to see if I enjoy them and what kind of loot we get out of that, of course. The second one that we should probably analyze rather quickly is this a problem for EVE Online? You know, stuff like the injectors, that's like right on the edge of what could be a problem. Stuff like golden ammo would absolutely be breaking the sandbox rules. And what is the impact of this new type of content, this feature for EVE Online? In my opinion, it is, it's not a problem. None of this is really against the sandbox rules, especially because there is still risk involved as players within the system can still find out exactly where you leave your dungeon and try to gank you or PvP you in dangerous space, or if you're under a vortex. So I do think that it still follows the sandbox rules, and I don't see this as a problem, because it also doesn't really impact any of the other gameplay styles in EVE Online. What I rather like about the Abyssal dungeons is that I would call it a horizontal expansion of the sandbox. And what I mean by that is that you have the clear vertical pathway that exists in EVE Online at the moment. Mine for minerals, get take 1 ships. Next up, do moon mining and 0-0, get take 2 ships. After that, go into wormhole space, get take 3 ships. That is a very obvious progression that they could have continued or tried to continue, but I feel like that has somewhat reached its limits, and I much prefer this side activity. So you can go do solo dungeons, solo activity. It's a new ship line, the Triglavian ships, a specific weapon system that only comes from there, and then of course you've got the RNG loot that will be a new feature and a new part of that as well. But it is a side experience that is basically almost completely independent from all the current activities in EVE Online. So that's why I would call it a horizontal expansion of the sandbox. It's just giving you more options for certain content to do with its own line of rewards, its own line of industry, which is something that I feel is very important, that if you are going to create new content and you want to have people actually run that, you have to give them something unique to motivate them to do that, which is, in my opinion, why Resource Wars failed, because it was just more Tech 1 stuff as a reward. It was encroaching on an existing baseline, an existing base activity in EVE Online already. This is completely new, and it's all next to the sandbox itself, or a part of it, of course, but not a layer on top, and nothing that would basically keep you from mining, keep you from raiding, keep you from doing exploration. In fact, I'm personally planning to really combine that. I'm going to save my exploration loot, my faction exploration loot, and I'm definitely gonna try to do some nice RNG on that and see if I can get some, not godlike pieces, but close to godlike pieces. So what is this feature that I'm talking about? Perhaps for those guys that haven't read anything below, I'm going to put a video to the video from CCP themselves, from FanFest. That's really all the information we have at the moment. But the way that I understand this feature is that you will be able to buy an item from Concord that will give you access to, you could say, the level 1 Abyssal dungeon once the expansion comes out. If you use this, you gotta be in a Tech 1 or Tech 2 cruiser, definitely not a Tech 3 cruiser. You will open up a gateway to the Abyssal dead space. This will leave behind a beacon that other players can probe, so they can wait for you for your exit while you run the dungeon. And once you're in the dungeon, it will have some very specific bonuses, drawbacks, and that can impact all types of fits. So it won't be, oh, okay, I take my Gila and that's the best ship and that's it, because sometimes you will have very specific counters to missiles, to drones, to turrets, to shield tanks, to armor tanks, etc. And if I'm not mistaken, I read somewhere that you will have some idea of what you're going to encounter inside the pocket from the key that you're going to use. So it does mean, I think, lots of experimentation, lots of different ships to buy, and quite a bit of work in order to figure out all the possible combinations when it comes to these new dungeons. The enemies there, Triglavian, drifters and rogue drones as far as we know, and of course the environment itself that can actually be considered dangerous there. The rewards, that's what's really interesting in my opinion, is that you can find skills and goods in order to fly and create the Triglavian ships themselves. It's a frigate, a cruiser and a battleship, and also everything needed for their very unique weapon system, which is like, you could compare it to the Void Race from StarCraft. So it's a continual beam on the target, and the longer the beam is firing, the more damage it does. It's going to take a single high slot. Its potential damage is going to be quite high, comparable to 150% of a normal full rack of weapons. So these will be very, very interesting. The one drawback of the weapon system is that it will fire up to its optimal, and that's it. If you manage to fly away from the ship further than it's optimal, then you'll be safe. The weapon can't hit you anymore. This might shake up the meta a little bit. I think that the ships look really great as well, and it is definitely a first interesting motivator to go run these dungeons, to try and earn your own frigate, earn your own cruiser, grab the skills, learn to fly them, and possibly be amongst the first ones to fly around New Eden in one of those Triglavian ships. It's very unlikely to be you or me. There are some hardcore players out there, but definitely a very nice reward system, I think, to be able to fly new ships in EVE Online with a unique weapon system as well. Another part of the loot, which is of course a little bit controversial, is the RNG upgrade system for existing pieces. I can understand the hesitance from players on this feature. Personally, I'm not against it. Mainly because I don't see how this would break the rules of the sandbox. The feature itself is basically you can find an item in Abyssal Dead Space that you can then use to boost or to try to change an existing module. For instance, one will be for tenement afterburners, one could be for medium armor reps or large armor reps, and then a random number generator is going to switch around the stats or change the stats on that specific item, creating a new item, an abyssal item you could call it, with its own unique stats. It can be better, it can be worse. That is the RNG part of it, and it can be applied to any item from that specific line. Let's say tenement afterburner. So you can risk this on a Tech 2 item, even on a Tech 1 item or a meta item, but also on a very expensive officer item to try and create a god tier unique module that way. So I don't think that this breaks the rules of the sandbox. It will make balance a little bit trickier. We're very likely to only see this traded on contracts as well, but this is very much comparable to Path of Exile, where you also have a random number generated chance to create a very, very powerful item there. And I can see the hook of this. While personally, I'm not someone that is going to go completely crazy in that system. I'll do whatever I happen to find myself and that I can upgrade myself, but I can really see that there will be people that will be hunting really, really hard to get the very best possible modules in EVE Online, and it's just something that is going to keep you playing a very unique reward system for the Abyssal Dead Space buckets that I think will find its audience. Even if it's not for you, there's other people that are going to grind for those god tier items, you could call them, with really unique stats. My personal first idea that I've got here, for instance, the Octor, you can see that it takes me around 7.5 seconds for the compact afterburner to actually warp out. I think that the shorter the cooldown of the afterburner, actually the worse the item is considered. So I'm definitely gonna grab some of these compact afterburners, and if part of the RNG is to possibly lower the activation time of an afterburner, well, I would definitely like to have one that, for instance, can get my Octor in warp after like 5 seconds or even 4 point something seconds. So yeah, I do see the potential in there with more than just officer modules as well. So I plan to do that with my rewards or with the stuff that I found in exploration, and we'll see what comes of that, but I do think that this will be a very strong motivator that will hook a lot of people into the content from the Abyssal Dead Space buckets. All of this should come out on CC in the upcoming weeks. Definitely planning to take a look at that as soon as I can, grab a couple of cruisers, try out some crazy fits and explore all of those different possibilities. A last part that is very much part of the test bed that they consider these abyssal dungeons to be is that a lot will be different from in general wormhole space. Your point of view will be different to make it all feel a lot more cinematic. You'll have some massively different backdrops with weather effects, with quite unique architecture amongst all of the items in the Dead Space pocket, and it is all randomly created. So CCP doesn't have to put a lot of work into creating a new Abyssal dungeons themselves. It's all an automated system, which should give them time to try and expand on that once it actually comes out and if it is successful. Here is a Nyarja, so a little bit careful on this one. You never know what's on the other side of this gate. So let's take care of the warp here and be a little bit careful. But yeah, overall I am eagerly awaiting that feature, and I will definitely try my best to run these dungeons. Doesn't look like anything too threatening on the gate. Go, go, go. I look forward to the Abyssal dungeons, to the Triglavian collective content. I look forward to trying to get my own ships, make my own ships, learn to fly those, and also to RNG some of the items, try and pimp out some nice cruisers for all of that content and learn all about it. It is tailored to the solo players. As most of you guys know, I am mostly a solo player. For cruisers, absolutely perfect if you watch the videos from the last few weeks. So I didn't know about this. This actually comes as a great surprise. It was not what I expected the Triglavian collective to be all about, but I definitely feel like we should give this feature a fair chance and do it before we actually pass judgment on it. That's going to be it for this video, guys. I'm going to go continue off to Cheetah, sell my blueprint copies, and I'll see you all next time.